Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Today is Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. This afternoon, we are gathered for a public hearing regarding our 2024 various resolutions regarding our 2024 revised budget, our 2025 budget, as well as mill levy certification. My name is John Kafalis, Chair of the Board. Joined here in person by Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally from District 3, and Commissioner Kristen Stevens from District 2 is participating via phone. So all three commissioners are present, and I think in a moment I'll turn it over to our county. Oh, I should also mention, of course, we have, forgive me, we have Lindsay Jones from the clerk and recorder's office, and she's recording the meeting. It's a public meeting. There will be an opportunity in the beginning if there are folks who may want to offer public comment on the overall budget, revised budget, and the proposed budget for 2025, etc. Of course, we have our county manager and various folks from our budget office who have worked very hard, very diligently, and very accurately to put together all of this with the support of staff and the commissioners and everyone else. So, with that, I believe I ought to stop talking and turn it over to our county manager. Lorenda, do you want to cue this up, and then we'll turn it over to our colleagues?
Sure. Thank you very much. We've talked about this a lot since about July. I think we began talking about the 2025 budget preparation with our HR folks. You all set targets for each department at that time. Departments and offices worked throughout the summer to develop their budgets. We met individually with each one of them on their proposals, on their requests. We have had public meetings. We've had community conversations. We've met out in the public on many occasions, trying to make this as transparent a process as possible. All of this has been posted on our webpage since September. And so developing the budget for the next year is always a very interesting and collaborative process. The 2024 budget is a plan, and so we know that things don't always go according to plan. And so what you'll have here, as well as amendments to the 2024 budget, to make sure that those accurately reflect what happened during the year and no department or office overspends. The budget team has met and continues to meet with budget staff out in the departments and offices to make sure that everything is done as it should be and all of the I's are dotted and T's are crossed by the time we come to you. So I think Matthew Bahanen, our budget team lead, is going to lead this discussion for us. And there are several pieces of process that we follow each year that you'll see in the agenda that is now displayed up on the screen.
Thank you, Lorenda. And just want to acknowledge that our county assessor is also present to listen to the presentation. Matthew, I presume you'll do this, but if you could maybe further explain the process and the opportunity for public comment and how that all works. And I think we have 5 resolutions or motions to approve resolutions that we need to consider. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, good afternoon, commissioners. We have the agenda up on the screen. It begins with public comment about the 2024 budget amendment and 2025 budget adoption resolutions. And we do actually have 6 resolutions that legally define the budget, including amendments, adoption, 2025, mill levies for Larimer County, then also the resolution to adopt budgets for all the other entities that are managed by Larimer County, including improvement districts, the public trustee, and the pest district. And then there's some resolutions to appropriate funds. These are the legal authority given by the commissioners to each department and elected office. A resolution to designate 2025 ending fund balances. Those are the reserves for future years. And then the final resolution would be to delegate authority to the Director of Performance, Budget, and Strategy for other tax authorities in Larimer County to certify their mill levies. And so that's kind of the agenda for the day, and we can walk through each of those items when we get there.
So according to the agenda, are you going to get into each of these in more detail?
Yes.
Yes, of course. So per the agenda, now would be an opportunity for the public, if there are folks who wish to offer comment on the revised 2024 budget, the various amendments, and also the proposed 2025 budget. Is that correct, Matthew?
Yes.
So we don't have a whole lot of folks here in person. Yes. We do have a member of the press, which is a good thing, and that reinforces the importance of being very open and transparent with folks, the public. Alex, we're not aware of anyone who has requested to offer public comment and that we need to call out to.
No, sir.
We have not.
Okay. Then we'll close the public comment portion and we'll begin with the first resolution to amend the 2024 budget. Take it away, Matthew, please.
Yeah, so
And
this,
if you could speak a little bit closer to the mic.
yeah, I'll try to get right into it.
Thank you, sir.
This first resolution will amend the 2024 budget from the original adopted budget that we adopted last year to include all of the carryover requests from prior year that we've been directed to include additional revenue from grants or fees or all revenue sources. And then, so that total change in expense budget would be just over 87 million. The majority of that was carryover from prior year for all funds. And then also some additional revenue. What is left of that additional carryover in revenue would be designated for future uses and put into the reserves for the ending 2024 fund balance, which would go into the starting 2025 fund balance. And the details for all of those revisions were brought to the commissioners at admin matters meetings, or we were directed budget retreats or other work sessions to include these changes in the budget. And we have all those details for anyone that would like to see each item. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. Colleagues, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, any questions, comments, observations?
Not at this time, sir. Thank you.
Oh. Commissioner Stevens, anything you'd like to contribute at this time or questions?
No, I think we've covered this a lot, as Matthew said, during the work sessions, and so I'm comfortable with this item as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's good to hear your voice. Just for the sake of folks who may be listening or watching, could you explain a little bit more about, so the original budget for 2024, the dollar amount was $629 million plus dollars. And then because of additional revenue carryover, that increased that amount by what's shown on the page. Could you say a little bit more about that? And in the end, keeping in mind balance that's being set aside for future use, what is the budget for? How does it change from 629 to wherever it is today?
Yeah, so every year we do an adopted budget. That's what we're doing for 2025 today. So last year, the commissioners adopted the 2024 budget. And then to change the budget, it requires commissioner approval. And so that's what this legal resolution will do. Now, for example, a change to the budget, if you remember all the way back to last January, we were not able to adopt the mill levy resolutions until after the budget had been adopted. And so because of the special session from last fall and the unknowns about property tax revenues, you all directed us to include changes to the budget for air quality. And so there were a few air quality initiatives, and those would be added to the adopted budget after December, but throughout the year. So in the system, in our budget software, we go in and we put in that change request, and then after 12 months of all departments, all 29 departments, all the funds, all those change requests that are submitted by staff under your direction, they come to you in this resolution. And so the total change, the addition cumulative of all changes would be an additional $87 million
So from
plus.
629,162,000, et cetera, to 716,202,000,
Right.
202,000, et cetera.
And next year, whatever is unspent, a big part of that is the carryover process. So we have a lot of ongoing capital projects throughout the county through solid waste, the ranch, natural resources. And so a big portion of that adjustment is just changing in the timing of capital spending.
Thank you, Matthew. Any further discussion?
Commissioners,
I-
one moment, Commissioner Stevens got disconnected. Let us reconnect with her.
Oh,
Just one
Say
second.
that again, Miranda.
Commissioner Stevens got disconnected. We'll need to reconnect with her. Just one second.
Gosh, thank you. And then I think we'll have you do this motion. We'll go back and forth. I think you have it, right? Yeah, we'll go with.
Hello, I'm back. Sorry about that.
all right, you there, Commissioner Stevens? We can hear you.
I am, thank
Can
you.
you hear us?
I can.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Commissioner. So just had a little bit of a conversation. I'm not sure when you got cut off. And we are now prepared to offer the motion regarding the amended 2024 budget. And I will ask Commissioner Shattuck McNally to offer that motion.
Thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I move to amend the 2024 budget to amounts as approved by the county commissioners and county manager.
Thank you, Commissioner. That is a proper motion. Colleagues, any further discussion, insights? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. That motion, passes 3-0. We now move on to the number two resolution. And before we proceed, Commissioner Stevens, did you get a copy of the motions? Do you have them there, or maybe not?
I might, but I would have to track
What'd
them
she
down,
say?
So.
We emailed out the agenda and all the resolutions
But
last
not this.
Friday.
Okay. Then we'll probably stick with Commissioner Shattuck McNally to offer the motions. Thank you. Please proceed, sir.
Yeah, the second resolution would be to adopt the 2025 budget and set mill levies for Larimer County. This establishes the budget by fund, identifies that we operate under a balanced budget, and establishes the mill levies that are needed to finance the budget. The proposed budget was released in October per state statute, and all the presentations and the work sessions, the information we have on that proposed budget is online. We'll be working on a narrative for the 2025 adopted budget after this hearing, but the changes between the proposed budget and the adopted budget are outlined below, just under 50 million. Most of that change is we received direction after the proposed budget was released to put in a budget for a new emergency services building. And so there are also transfers related to that. So the new building would be just about $27 million. The funding for that will come from various fund reserves. And so to get those fund reserves from the sales tax reserve fund or disaster contingency fund, they need to be transferred from one account to another. So although the final number is around 49 million, the change in spending will be closer to 27 for that facilities project. There was also an adjustment related to broadband projects that were either delayed or not moving forward, and so that budget will be reduced by 3.3 million. There's a correction where a project was double counted, and so we've removed that, the ADA facility improvements. And then a project to cover public engagement software licensing, and also all of the changes to improvement districts. There were 2 new improvement districts that were approved by the voters in November, and then just adjustments from the initial property tax assessed value certification to the final certification is included in that number. So total changes, 49.5 million, and there's your summary as outlined. Other than that, the 2025 budget will total 700 million in expenses.
Thank you, Matthew. Colleagues, questions, comments? Commissioner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to just say Matthew, Alex, and Josh, and Lorenda, and Lori, and everyone involved with the budget, and that includes all the service directors, all the staff that came before you had individual meetings with the teams with their server proposals and talking about their budget. And I just wanted to, we keep telling the story and saying this narrative because it is important. We're trying to be transparent, but there's a lot that goes into this budget and this conversation. And this short hearing today does not really capture the amount of effort, time, and energy that goes in by our staff. And a lot of this you can see online, but they do meet a lot and talk about these changes or service proposals that were maybe not moved forward or things that had to be adjusted. And it's really an important story to tell because these impact our residents, these impact our services. These are important things that we take very seriously and care about deeply. And so this budget is also reflecting on how we take care of each other and take care of our county and our residents. And to me, it's not, there's a bunch of numbers, but this is actually the work we do together and how we take care of our county and our wonderful visitors and our residents. So I just wanted to share that. And I want to thank you all for your steadfast and very dedicated work because this is not easy. You make it look easy and sound easy, and the website is so much fun. I don't know why I geek out on your Budget Explorer tool, but it's such a wonderful tool, and I hope people in the public will go check that out. You can learn a lot from that website, I believe. And I just wanted to say, I know there's the change with the emergency services building, and in partnership with the sheriff, we're going to move the old building out of the floodplain, which is woefully too small and inadequate for what is needed. And I learned that after my first even couple of months as a new commissioner in 2021, when I was elected in 2020, we went and toured that building. And a lot of that expensive equipment is outside. There was not enough space for them to all meet, especially during the Cameron Peak fire. And it's just for training and being in the floodplain is just really ironic and of note that here this emergency services building has been in the floodplain and we need to move them out. And I know we have done a lot of innovative and challenging things to get to this point today. I didn't know we would get to this point today, but you all have figured we've got a wonderful DOLA grant. We have all these other things. And so it's really something that will be for public safety and for the whole community. And I look forward to the innovative things like the geothermal and all that we're doing there. It's just really great work and a great partnership with the Sheriff's Department and the emergency services and the county commissioners. So I'm thankful for all of that. And I just wanted to make note of that because that is not it's going to have some nice things to it, but it is desperately needed. And I wanted to make sure we made note of that this building and this move of this location and these wonderful first responders who are heroes. We see them in the Alexander Mountain Fire, Cameron Peak Fire, and all the things they do to mitigate. It's just really important to make note that this is an important public safety action we're taking today. So other than that, I know this, I kind of laughed when I see how many short pages this is. This is a lot of work we put into the last year, and I just want to thank you all for helping guide us and helping really make this this is a really wrangly budget with all the different things that come in and out, and you help us all year long to understand all the intricacies and the complexities, and I just want to say my heartfelt gratitude. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stevens, do you have any questions or comments at this point?
I don't believe I have any questions, but I will make a few comments. First of all, I want to apologize for not being there. I'm sorry. I am home with the flu and got out of bed because I wanted to be part of this hearing, and I know it's important for the public and for my colleagues for me to be here, but you are better off that I am at home and not with you. I do want to extend my thanks, as Commissioner Shattuck McNally did, to the budget staff and our county manager and assistant county manager and all our directors. It takes a lot of people to make sure that we prepare a budget in a responsible way, and so I thank you all for the work that you've done. My understanding is there's not many people in the audience today, and that's unfortunate because it's always great when we have some dialogue, but we have had opportunities for public outreach with the budget document over the past several months, and so we have had input into the budget, and that's been really helpful, and I always encourage people in the audience and people listening online to engage with the budget and really understand how we craft and make sure that the budget meets the needs of our community. We are very conscious this year, as we are in all years, but particularly this year, understanding that everybody is, not everybody, but many people are struggling with their own budgets, and so we're very conscious about not growing government. And so if you look into the meat of this budget, you'll see that we haven't added a lot of new positions. At the same time, we are committed to serving the community in the way that we need to. So I think Commissioner Shattuck McNally alluded to this, but we definitely see this as a moral document. This is how we care about our community. This is how we meet the needs of our community. To that end, the budget addresses things like housing affordability and climate in the way that we can, and public safety. And so Commissioner Shattuck McNally also spoke about the emergency services building. I think that's a really great example of how we're committed to public safety in our community. We did receive a $2 million DOLA grant, Department of Local Affairs grant, that will help us, and it's wonderful when we can leverage dollars from other places to be able to add to our budget. So we're looking forward to building a new building that will keep our community safe. I also want to just talk just briefly about budgets in the future. We know that there are cuts coming at the county level and the state level, and it is our desire to make sure that we're protecting the most vulnerable people in our community. So we have that in mind in the future. We want to make sure that we are providing care for the people who need it, child care, and people living in poverty. And so we will continue to look towards that as we craft future budgets. But there again, thank you for everyone who participated in crafting our budget and giving us input. We appreciate the help, and we look forward to working with you again next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. Hope you feel better sooner than later. I have just a couple of questions, mostly for the sake of thousands of folks who may be listening and watching. And that is, so the budget before us for 2025 that we are considering adopting, that dollar amount is just $700.2 million. How does that compare with the 2024 revised budget? And can you provide some context for that difference?
Yeah, so the 2024 revised budget is $716 million. And so the 2025 adopted budget is $16 million less. What really is changing the story of the budget is the one-time spending is slowing down. So capital projects are finishing up. You'll know the Fleet Campus project has been underway for I think 4 or 5 years with the purchase of the land. So that project will no longer be budgeted. There's no longer capital expenses for that. And then the other piece would be the disaster recovery spending from the COVID American Rescue Plan Act. Many of those projects have been completed. The subrecipients have been paid. There's still a few outstanding projects in that fund, in the disaster recovery fund, but largely the one-time spending from prior years is being reduced. Our ongoing side is mostly status quo. There is funding for public safety was the largest service proposal to keep the sworn officer compensation in line with other jurisdictions. But there were not too many positions added this year, countywide. I think it was less than 1% or 1/10 of 1%. But that overall, those are the largest trends in county spending.
Thank you, Matthew. And one additional question, if I may, and then I'll just offer a bit of a comment. Although my colleagues have pretty much said what needs to be said, I would just say that to the third power, perhaps. And my question is, how did the various legislative sessions and the bills related to property taxes and assessment rates, how does that factor into all this?
Yeah, the latest special session gave us some clarity before the proposed budget was finalized. We will be subject to 10.5% growth of property tax revenue per cycle. So that, comes out to 5.25% per year average annual growth in property tax revenue, which is historically lower than what we've seen in the past. And so we may be constrained by that revenue cap going forward, where our previous growth in the cost of doing government, we may have to adjust that to be more efficient and consider how we serve Larimer County residents going forward into the future.
And isn't it correct that some of the additional property tax revenue that the county received last year as a result of the increase in valuations, a good portion of that was set aside for a rainy day?
Right. So there, and this is getting ahead to the next resolution to set ending fund balances. But the county does maintain reserves in, disaster contingency fund, the general fund, and then all of the special revenue funds and the enterprise funds are subject to county policy to maintain a reserve between 10 and 20% is typically what we recommend depending on the revenue source.
And Commissioner, you are correct. Last year you all did set aside money in the emergency fund, the rainy day fund for a disaster, and you also did a temporary mill levy credit last year. The legislation will really affect the county next year. That's the reappraisal year. When we talk about a cycle, it's a 2-year cycle. And so we think we'll see the first of this next year.
Thank you, colleagues. I just want to make sure that things are as clear as they can be for folks who may be listening or paying attention. As far as comments, I really appreciate the comments of my colleagues. I certainly am very grateful for our mighty budget team. It's not like a whole department. It's just a couple of folks who really know what they're doing. So I'm very grateful for that. We're very meticulous about this process. We've had to make some adjustments in light of uncertainty, changes in various things. And I think and we've also tried really hard to engage the public in this process. And I'm sure at the end we'll talk a little bit more about now that if we can complete the process now, we'll be starting it up again pretty soon in the new year. So it's a year-round process, and we welcome ideas on how folks can provide input, can really more meaningfully engage in this work. Because ultimately the budget is one of the most important things that we do, and it's got to be balanced. And we have to take into consideration, I think, the realities of regular folks and what they're dealing with, and how that manifests perhaps with the county and the county budget. Enough said. Thank you for listening. Looks like, let's see, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, you're the motion person.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to adopt the 2025 budget and set mill levies for Larimer County government as outlined in the budget adoption resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you kindly. Proper motion. Any further discussion, colleagues? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. We move on to the next resolution. Matthew, you're on a roll.
Yeah, so this third resolution would be to adopt 2025 budgets and set levies for other entities. There's a long list here on the agenda of mostly improvement districts. Improvement districts, just as a reminder, are geographically limited special districts where a neighborhood can form a taxing authority and vote within a neighborhood to tax themselves an additional mill levy to fund mostly road improvements. And so this list you see of general, GID stands for General Improvement District, and PID is Public Improvement District. And then there's also the Public Trustee and the Pest Control District, which is administered by the Department of Natural Resources, included on this list. And these all have budgets that are in our financial system and have expenses and revenues just like the rest of Larimer County government.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions or comments? Commissioner Stevens, anything?
Sorry. Yeah, just I really don't have any comments. Just really thank you, Matthew, for sort of reminding people the role of these improvement districts, and we encourage people to look into this as a funding mechanism for their roads if they're struggling with road maintenance. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. That's important for people to know that. Let's move on, I believe, to the motion. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, you're definitely on a roll here.
Thank you. I move to adopt the 2025 budgets and set mill levies for other entities listed on the agenda, including county-managed improvement districts, the public trustee, and pest control district.
Thank you. That is indeed a proper motion. Any further discussion, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. On to number 4.
So this fourth resolution would be to appropriate sums of money for 2025. Folks may be familiar with Congress or the state doing appropriation resolutions for different bills. This is the county's form of that. This is the legal mechanism to authorize departments and elected offices to make expenditures for county purposes within specific limits. And these limits are also in the budget. Within the general fund, it's by department and elected office. And then outside of the general fund, these appropriation limits are set at the fund level. And happy to answer any questions about appropriations. But
Thank you. Any questions about appropriations? Commissioner Stevens, questions or comments about appropriations?
No, I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Please offer the motion, Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Certainly. I move to appropriate sums of money for 2025 for each Larimer County spending agency and amounts specified in the budget resolution.
Thank you. I believe that's a proper motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to number 5.
this final resolution, or I guess fifth of sixth, would be to designate the purpose of the reserves, the leftovers. After all the revenues, beginning fund balance, have been spent, we don't want to spend all the available resources at once. We designate ending future fund balances for future budgets. And we have specific accounts for what these reserves are designated for. And this would include the Tabor required reserve per state law.
Thank you. Anything? Questions, comments, observations? Just offer that it's important to have various categories of very robust nest egg to prepare for emergencies, natural disaster emergencies and other things, and to have things set aside for capital projects and future needs. And I believe we do a reasonable job of that. Okay, may we have the resolution, please? And I'll stop talking.
I move to designate 2025 ending fund balances as summarized in the budget resolution.
Thanks, Commissioner. Proper motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. We do have 6 resolutions. Matthew, will you tell us a little bit about this one? Delegating authority, et cetera.
Yeah, this was an update to state law a few years ago, which allowed the commissioners to delegate authority to certify mill levies for other tax districts within Larimer County, so school districts, cities and towns, water districts, metro districts, fire districts. There are hundreds of these districts in Larimer County. And so what we do, and we have been doing this week, is collecting all of the mill levy certifications and additional new property tax information as required by new state law from this year. And then we will certify, as you delegate authority to the Director of Performance, Budget, and Strategy, he will certify that that information is correct before it gets submitted to the Assessor's Office, the Treasurer's Office, and the state.
Once again, thank you, Matthew and your team. Colleagues, any questions, comments, observations? Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, actually, I think this is a good time to just point out that
Good.
that not your whole property tax bill does not go to the county. That there are many special districts that also receive property tax, including, in some cases, library districts, water districts, many other special districts, and the school district. And so, this is something that we've been trying to educate the public about this year and in previous years, is that we end up being about 25, on average, around 25% of folks' tax bill. And so this is just a good place to give that reminder that when we talk about lowering tax bills and caps at the county level, that doesn't necessarily affect these other taxing districts. And so we are a small part of your property tax. Thank you.
Thank you for making that observation. And just to give an example, so as a homeowner in Fort Collins, the overall mill levy, I think for where we live, is approximately 95 mills. And the county's portion of that, I believe, is between 22 and 23 mills. Is that correct, Matthew? Did I get I know it was shown earlier.
It's a 21.571
That's
with an abatement levy added on at
So-
a certain small level.
Thank you.
So around
I mean,
22.
overall, the mill levy is 95 or so. I
Correct.
think it's 8 taxing authorities, if I'm remembering correctly. And of that, the 21.571, give or take, is for the county.
Right, depending on where you live. So your mill levy may be higher or lower
course.
depending on what jurisdictions you're in.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for making that point, Commissioner. Anything else, colleagues? Commissioner Shannon McNally. Numero 6.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I move to delegate authority to the Larimer County Director of Performance, Budget, and Strategy to certify and submit mill levies to the Office of the Assessor and appropriate state agencies.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner. Proper motion indeed. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That also passes 3-0. We've gone through the various resolutions. We've had some discussion. I think it's important to not just kind of roll through this. I think to provide some context is important. But I believe we've concluded our business for today. Lorinda, is there anything else or any wisdom that you wish to share?
I just want to thank all of you and the public that came to provide input. It would be great to have more of that, and we are working on ideas to make these meetings a little more accessible, maybe a little more frequent. Thank you to the departments, the elected offices. I wanted to note that the sheriff's office made some significant reductions in the emergency services building proposal to make this possible, and I want to thank them for that as well. It lets us move forward with some grant opportunities that really let us maximize these other dollars. So thank you to you all. You have been engaged in this process throughout. You've asked great questions. We've followed up, and this budget team has done remarkable work and continues to. When they finish here today, it will all start again. And so thank you for all that you've done. This has been incredible. The partnership you have with departments is really successful. Thank you.
Thanks, thank you, Lorinda. Anything else, colleagues? Matthew, when does it all start again? When would you recommend is the optimal time for folks to start paying attention and help us, through this process?
Yeah, sometimes we get the question, how do we engage with the budget process? It's $700 million. How do we understand that? And there's really three great ways to do to engage with the budget process. First is the vote. Register to vote. All sales or tax rate increases have to go to the voters, and we had one this year that was not successful. And so that's a major part of the budgeting process. Second would be, if you have time and an interest in a specific area, try and join an advisory board. Many of the advisory boards set department spending plans, master plans, capital programming. And so, I think the openings for those are, on the county website when those occur. We're talking about the Board of Health, Open Lands Advisory Board, various programs have advisory boards that set policy and direction. And then the third is to attend community conversations, reach out to the budget office, your county commissioner, and just let them know about your priorities for the community in general. And then as that gets through to you, and then you provide direction to us, that really sets the direction of where the budget heads overall. And so those three ways would be the best way to participate in the budget process.
That's great. And isn't it correct that, is it March, or when do we have the first meeting, where there's an analysis of all the different things that we need to consider?
Yeah, really January 2nd, a department can submit an amendment to the budget, and we do get them. But the carryover process, where the prior fiscal year 2024 will close out all the bills that will have been paid and all the checks will have come in, and we'll close out 2024 and we'll see what we have left and what needs to be rolled forward into the 2025 budget process. And that's also an opportunity to consider, what's going on at the state assembly, state budget. And so that's really a major decision point for the fiscal year, is that carryover work session, which I think is in late March or April.
Great. Thank you for entertaining my questions, Matthew, in an informed way. I believe we've completed our business. It's 3:14 p.m. We are adjourned.